Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy.
As you remember, I donated the flagpoles, one on each side, because the White House didn't really have an appropriate American flag. It had a small one on top. We left that, but it didn't have an appropriate American flag. And this is a great pole. This is the top of the line. It's tapered. This isn't a straight up and down job, which looks terrible, frankly. That's a tapered pole. Great. I'm very good at flagpoles.
He's very good at flagpoles.
Tapered flagpoles.
Can you minor in college in flagpole? Where do you, how and when and why do you get good at flagpoles?
The minor is phallicism. The male
Maybe.
brain.
Wow. Pole. Oh, so you're going with pole.
Oh, I'm going with it all. Tapered, pole.
Well,
I don't know about
that.
tapered, but I'm with you on pole.
You know, I did a spot inspection of the flagpoles near us.
Yes.
They were all tapered. I don't know. I mean, do we have great flagpoles, or is that just pretty standard for a tall flagpole?
All right. Well, we'll talk about this more in a bit. We also have Julie Roginsky back with us today. We're going to chat with her in a little while. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening. And we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media. And we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe. And you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So let's get back to that flagpole. We are a nation at war. Six months in, it's a quagmire. No end in sight. The economy sucks. Inflation is rising. Job growth is anemic. We still don't have the better, cheaper health care that he promised. His polling is cratering, hovering around 30. We'll soon be in the 20s, in my opinion. And he's worried about flagpoles? But my question is, how do you get good at flagpoles? Right? How do you get, what does it even mean to get good at flagpoles?
I mean, you can ask that question about almost everything that he talks about. He's obsessed with this insane ballroom. He's obsessed with the thickness of the granite for his helipad. He's obsessed with the gold on the statues in Washington. He's obsessed with the reflecting pool.
The thickness of his maxi pad? What did you say? All right, let's play this other clip where Mr. Sensitivity spoke.
So I just say this. So for you to pay a tiny little bit more for your gasoline, just remember you're doing it so that a very evil country cannot have, a country really, it's the number one state sponsor of terror in the world. We don't want to have them have a nuclear weapon. So remember that when you have to pay a little bit more, you're at $4. It's okay. I mean, it's, I'll never apologize. I did the right thing.
He'll never apologize. That's the key phrase right there.
I think what he said was insane, but let's just look at the facts. It's not true either. We're not stopping them from having nuclear weapons. One could argue if we literally were stopping them from having nuclear weapons, that it might be a price people could pay if we did anything correctly, but we're not.
But here's the real crime. Iran nuclear weapons, bad. North Korea nuclear weapons, good.
Yeah.
Because Kim Jong-un likes me.
Well, he writes some very nice letters. You've heard about that, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
of course. They're in love. They're in love. Do you think Natale Harp is jealous of Kim Jong-un?
Definitely.
We're going to get to her in a little bit. All right, let's talk about the Florida primary this week. Big surprise. Angie Nixon, a DSA, Democrat Socialist of America candidate, beat Alex Vindman, who's been on this podcast many times. Consider him a friend. He lost by more than 12 points. And so she will now face Ashley Moody, who was appointed by Governor DeSantis to fill in for Marco Rubio when he became Secretary of State. I do think we're going to see some crazy surprises this year. I do think if people vote, it's going to be a blue tidal wave. I'm just not at the point yet where I'm convinced that a Democratic socialist is going to become a U.S. Senator from Florida, which is ruby red right now. It is no more purple. It is ruby red.
I think it speaks to where the electorate is. I really think that even in Florida, I mean, because it's not a Democratic state, I think the primary, the fact that it went left, it actually did surprise me how much he lost by. But people are done. They're done with incremental change. They are done.
Well, when you say people,
Democrat.
This is my concern.
I'm just going to, so.
Democrats are different. Progressives And DSA people are very different than moderate Republicans and independents in a ruby red southern state. We have to just make that very, very clear.
But this was a Democratic primary.
Yeah, so Democrats are the only ones voting. That doesn't mean that the rest of the state, Republicans hold a 1.5 million voter registration advantage over Democrats in Florida.
Exactly. But how she won, like I was saying, I'm surprised at the margin that she won by. It's not hard to imagine this year that somebody like her in the Democratic Party in a place like Florida that is so red actually did go progressive because people are done.
That's not what I'm saying.
What are you saying?
I am completely not surprised that it went progressive and that she won.
I am.
I'm saying...
I'm not really, but...
I'm saying that Vindman would have stood a better chance of beating Ashley Moody because of his national security background, his military service, the fact that he's more of a moderate. He got punished because he moved there 3 years ago, so he really wasn't connected to the community. And what we're seeing now is this, not a backlash, but like we don't really care about the impeachment anymore than Trump.
Yeah, and also he's Jewish, and he's part of the establishment. People are looking for anti-establishment candidates.
Yeah, but again, it depends on how you define people. I'm talking about November, all people. I'm not talking about Democratic primary people. That makes perfect sense to me. Yes, there is a movement in this country right now. We now see it in Colorado. We see it in Michigan. We see it in Florida. We saw it in New York. There is a viable movement within the Democratic Party to have primary victories like this. That, in any way, shape, or form, does not dictate what's going to happen in November. In fact, it is those very primaries that could spell disaster for the Democratic Party in November. Because the conventional wisdom, and again, I will say, conventional wisdom may go out the window for the most part this year, but I really don't think conventional wisdom is going to go out the window in the U.S. Senate race in Florida this year. That's just my opinion, and I hope that this is not going to prove to be a huge mistake by progressives.
People vote emotionally, and how they feel about the situation we're in, and Democratic primary has Democrats voting. They, as Jen said, are tired of incremental change. They have been told they can't have any kind of universal health care. You have Hakeem Jeffries saying that he's not in favor of Medicare for all just last week. You see a backlash, and an understandable backlash, when we've spent $9 trillion since 2016 on the Defense Department, and we can't afford health care. We can't afford apparently anything that helps anybody but give giant tax cuts to the wealthiest. So yeah, you're definitely going to have a backlash. What that means in the general election remains to be seen. Of course, like you say, conventional wisdom would say, certainly in a state like Florida, that someone extremely progressive is not going to win. But, people don't vote planning in this sort of way of like, if I vote for this person, then that person's going to win, but that person's not going to win if they vote. People vote their feelings at the moment they're voting. And, the strategy of voting that's more long-term thinking about it isn't the way people actually vote. They vote their pocketbook.
This year.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's what we're seeing.
But
so
that's
we
my
just
point.
remain to be seen. So we'll see what happens.
That's my point, though. And it happens on both sides. You look at Ken Paxton in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Republicans, we love Ken Paxton. He's great. He's a great man. But that primary victory may be the reason that Texas looks like it could finally flip. Because in the primary, they got all excited. They got their guy, Crime Schmime. In November, he's a terrible candidate. I just hope that we don't see a similar kind of thing happen in Michigan and in Florida. But time will tell. I'm very happy to be proven wrong, and I will do everything to me, vote blue no matter who. That's my motto. And I will support blue no matter who, but I'm a realist. I don't see history pointing to a Democrat socialist victory in the U.S. Senate race in Florida. I'm not even sure I see it in Michigan, to be honest. But I think maybe in Michigan, Abdul El Sayed has a slightly better chance. Although as of right now, if the election were today, he'd lose, according to all the polling.
This is all going to depend on getting out the vote. And if, in either state, depending on who comes out to vote and who doesn't come out to vote because they're upset. If they're upset with the candidate because they associate so much with Trump and they decide to stay home because they're a Republican, that can also help us win. It's really too early to say. Obviously, on paper right now, it seems that these are long shots, but, remains to be seen.
Well, look, they are our candidates now, and we have to support them, and we will support them. But to the folks out there who, have voiced frustration at opinions that differ from theirs, if you're really progressive, then you have to accept that not everybody is jumping for joy over these candidates, and you have to allow that to happen, But now is the time to really unite and do whatever we can individually and collectively to help Democrats win, whether it's Michigan or Florida or Josh Turek in Iowa or Mary Peltola in Alaska or Cooper in North Carolina, Sherrod Brown in Illinois, Troy Jackson up in Maine. We have to take the Senate. If you truly believe that democracy is hanging on by a thread, if you truly worry that an unfettered Donald Trump over the next 2.5 years with a neutered or completely abdicated Republican Congress, I hate to tell you where we're going to be by 2028. We have to take Congress back. We have to take not only the House, we have to take the Senate. This is an amazing opportunity, an unprecedented opportunity in a crazy year to take the Senate. So all of these votes, all of these candidates play a critical role. And I just want to see us do the right thing. So we just have to elect Democrats, and it works both ways. People on all sides have to hold their nose sometimes and walk into that voting booth and say, I'm not really thrilled, but I got to vote for this candidate. If you want change in this country, this is how it's going to happen. All right. Speaking of other elections, let's go to South Carolina. Darlene Graham, Lindsey's sister, who was appointed to fill out the remainder of his term. She's running, and she made some headlines this week. Let's play this clip.
Senator, are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? If so, why?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States, and if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security, but I do support the military. My brother was in the Air Force for 33 years, so I will do everything I can to support the military. My dad was in the Army. I'm not a polished politician up here. National security is not my thing, not my area of expertise, but I do support the military.
I'm just going to be honest here. I would love to tie one on. Anybody else want a drink? What?
Yes, please.
Taiwan? Oops.
Did you ever see, there was a Saturday Night Live skit with George Bush. It was one of those parodies, and he was asked a question, and he said, pass. This is what it reminds me of.
Well, she could have said, when it comes to Taiwan, I'm still in the process of being briefed by my staff. As you know, I've been thrust into this situation very quickly, so I'm working my way through the Taiwan issue. But let's just say Taiwan is an ally, and it's threatened by China, and we just have to do whatever we have to do to protect it. So, next. I'm not running for Senate. That's the answer, right? Or pass. Or just do this for 10 minutes. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? Just say that until they're like, oh, you know what? Let's just move on to the next question.
I mean, obviously, that answer sounded profoundly stupid, but I would have to say that it fits with the Senate in many ways. I mean, have you ever listened to Tommy Tuberville? Has he ever said anything smart? Has he ever said anything that wasn't incredibly stupid?
But also with her, it's vote for me because you like my brother. Well, that's not a winning campaign strategy.
No, but
national security is probably the number one thing.
But the reality is that Lindsey Graham didn't have a wife. And in the past,
what are you implying here?
In the past,
I don't like where you're going with this.
This is something that was done, right? That their wives.
But they fill in the rest of the term. They don't run again.
That's right.
When she was put in place, I thought, okay, whatever. She's no more useless than he was. And so it'll be over soon enough. And then suddenly she's going to run.
Yeah. All right. Well, she attempted some cleanup. Let's go to that.
I've said many times, I'm not a politician, certainly not a career politician. I don't speak politician. You know, I was just honest, and I think that's kind of a foreign concept. But I talked to several people today. I traveled around the state, and they said, you know, we appreciated the fact that you were honest. And I did say several times that, you know, China is our enemy, our military and economic threat to the United States. Of course, Taiwan is our friend. But I think people in South Carolina are more worried about making ends meet. They're concerned about boys and girls sports. One lady talked to me extensively about that today. They're concerned about the Second Amendment. They're concerned about the Save America Act.
One person talked to her about boys and girls sports.
That's much more important than national security.
I'm not a politician. I have no experience. I don't know about national security, Taiwan. I couldn't even tell you where it is. But I deserve to be in the United States Senate. No, there should be some degree of expertise, of knowledge, of intellectual curiosity, of research that's done before you run for office. Get a bunch of college kids. For fuck's sake, go on ChatGPT. What is up with Taiwan? Do your homework. Don't just come before the people in a debate and go, I'm ignorant, vote for me. And that's what she did.
But I'm honest.
This is the moment we're in, and I've said this before, it's a moment of epistemic collapse, and we see anti-intellectualism, we see anti-science, and so she fits right in.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if she wins.
I mean, her brother is probably rolling over in his grave going, oh my God, Darlene, what are you doing? Just say something else. Say what Jennifer said. Pass. That would have been better. Haven't I taught you anything? Jesus. All right, let's get to our winners and losers.
My winner, North Korea. Trump's order to cut military exercises with South Korea carries risks likely to undercut U.S. military readiness in the region. My second winner, the USS Abraham Lincoln, is on its way home after 9 months in the Middle East after recent reports of poor quality of life due to logistic issues after Iran's destruction of a naval base in Bahrain.
John Ossoff is my winner for provoking the White House into meltdown mode for his comments about Natale Harp, and thereby prodding the press into actually asking questions about who the hell this woman is. My loser is sycophantic suck-up Scott Bessent, who proved he's the dumbest Treasury Secretary in history by saying this on Wednesday.
We've got a spike in oil prices today that I don't really understand.
Every time I hear him, all I hear is this.
But he wears glasses.
He's like the turtle. Remember the turtle?
Yeah,
I don't know why there's an oil spike.
I got two losers. My first, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, because the U.S. Navy reportedly plans to rename an aircraft carrier that was set to honor a black sailor who was a World War II Pearl Harbor hero. The USS Doris Miller would be renamed to honor Donald Trump, the first time an aircraft carrier would be named after a sitting president. My other loser, Donald Trump, who after a failed 6-month war, this week promised a, quote, economic D-Day against Iran, a, quote, crushing operation to, quote, cripple the country, because reports are that he has zero desire to return to military action because that's worked out so well. All right, that gets us to the weekly rant. So I want to talk about this Natale Harp situation for a second, because it's yet another example of just how chaotic the Trump presidency is. If we want, we could choose to focus on the soap opera aspect of it all, that this 35-year-old woman apparently is obsessed with the 80-year-old Trump. She's constantly by his side, has sent him letters to the effect of, "You're all that matters to me. I want to bring joy to you, and thank you for being my guardian and protector," which she signs often, "with all my heart." She also reportedly jumped into the trunk of his SUV on the way to court in 2023 after a screaming match with Secret Service because there was no room for her in the vehicle with Trump. These are not the words and actions of a mere personal assistant. They sound more like a girlfriend, or worse, a mistress, or even worse than that, a stalker. Which begs the question, where the hell has Melania been? Why do we have a United States president who, as Georgia Senator John Ossoff said, seems to care more about hopping all over the place with his young assistant instead of doing his job and focusing on the affordability crisis? Ossoff's statement sent the White House into an emotional tailspin. But Trump himself has not helped squash the rumors either. He's claimed that only Harp loves him the way his wife and kids do. I want some proof of that wife thing. Maybe the kids. I'm not sure about the wife. And when he was forced to flee in a catering truck in order to change planes to escape an assassination threat, he took Harp with him, not his secretaries of state or treasury. But as salacious and gossipy as the Trump-Hart relationship is, we need to focus on the more alarming aspect of this pairing. According to reporting by MS Now, Harp for about a year had access to U.S. government secrets without security clearance, after refusing to file the relevant forms without explanation. So the real concern here, and the real story, is that this president and his administration continues to act in a manner that is unprecedentedly incompetent, chaotic, corrupt, reckless, lawless, and dangerous. At this point, given the quagmire in Iran, the shitty economy, and his assault on the electoral system, honestly, I really don't give a shit who's obsessed with Trump or who he's fucking, if he's fucking anybody. That's not the crisis. The crisis is that this bizarro relationship could be a national security risk, jeopardizing the lives of Americans at home and overseas. And if we had a Republican Congress which did its job, maybe there'd be some accountability here, but don't hold your breath. In the end, the maddening truth is Trump called Biden Sleepy Joe, yet he's the one who constantly falls asleep at meetings. He created the term the Biden crime family, but it's him and his family who've made billions off the presidency. He promised to drain the swamp, and on that he delivered. The problem is he filled his administration with those swamp dwellers. And now we have yet another outlandish assault on boundaries and norms. But Trump doesn't care how the Natale Harp situation looks to Americans or to our allies abroad. All he cares about is that this adoring young woman has clearly made him the center of her emotional and physical universe. And that's the only thing that matters to him. All right, let's get to Julie Roginsky. She is the co-founder of the Mayday Media Network on YouTube and the author of the Salty Politics newsletter on Substack. She has nearly 3 decades of public and private sector experience as an advisor on strategic communications, political strategy, and public relations, working on behalf of corporate and political clients, which include Fortune 500 companies, startups, nonprofits, and dozens of politicians. She's also the co-founder of Lift Our Voices, a national nonprofit organization dedicated to transforming the American workplace by banning forced arbitration clauses and non-disclosure agreements for toxic workplace issues. And she is a former contributor at Fox News Channel, where she was a frequent co-host of Outnumbered and The Five. Prior to that, she was a contributor at CNBC, the financial news network. Julie, welcome back into the back room.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a while. I missed you.
It has. Missed you too. Let's start with the elections. We've had a slew of primary elections. There's been a lot of interesting results, some surprising results. There's a lot of assessing going on in terms of the direction of the Democratic Party. Are we becoming socialists or Bolsheviks, as the Republicans like to call us? You know, in the last election, the Democrats had a problem trying to convince people about autocracy. Well, good luck with Bolshevism, right? Getting the electorate to understand the threat of Bolshevism. So
yeah, as the great-granddaughter of Bolsheviks, I can tell you nobody but me knows exactly what that is. But go ahead.
That's right. I forgot your Russian heritage.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's start with Florida, which I got to say was probably the most surprising result to me. Angie Nixon beating Alexander Vindman, who I thought was going to win. I certainly didn't think he was going to lose by 13 points. And now I have this concern about November and our Democrats just getting themselves so self-righteously excited over their big primary victory and completely ignoring the fact that a DSA candidate in Florida for the United States Senate is never going to win.
I mean, look, I interviewed Alex Vindman on my podcast a couple of months ago. He was very good. I think the problem for Alex Vindman was twofold. One is that people seem to be no longer in the mood to relitigate the 2016 election, the impeachment trials of 2020 or 2018 when he first got impeached, whatever year that was. You saw that with, the sort of resistance movement. People are not doing too well, whether it's George Conway in my district here in New York, or Alex Vindman or others. They're just not doing particularly well. So that's one. Two is Alex Vindman just moved to Florida a few years ago, so I think he was not considered necessarily one of them. And for all of us who know Alex Vindman as a celebrity from outside Florida, I think we were like, wait, what just happened? How could Alex Vindman lose? I think if you're in Florida, you're like, who is this guy? Why is he coming here into our state? And I think, look, I like him. I have so much respect for him. I thought he would have been a great senator because he's thoughtful. He's not kind of didactic. He's not reactionary. Or reactive, I should say. But that's not the mood that the party's in. This would have been a tough seat under the best of circumstances, even Vindman, and even being funded. I cannot imagine that somebody like that would be elected in Florida this year. But if somebody like that is elected in Florida this year, it will. And look, she's a state legislator. She's from Florida. She ran a very, very good grassroots campaign. I don't want to diminish anything from what she was able to accomplish. But I also think that if she's able to win this year, there's going to be such a Democratic landslide that there's going to be a whole host of unlikely people in the Senate and the House, and the Democrats are going to take the Senate, by 60. There's going to be 60 Democrats as opposed to, the 52 or 53 that we're hoping are going to be in the Senate this year.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I said that to someone last week, that things are so unusual right now with our political system, our government. I mean, conventional wisdom is just so far out the window, it's not even worth talking about, which makes me feel like the results that we're going to see in November are going to be equally unusual. I just don't know that under that unusual umbrella, we're going to have a DSA senator from Florida. Like, that just seems like...
I don't know.
But it's possible.
I
guess it's possible, but I'm more concerned. I'm not as concerned with Angie Nixon as I am with the sentiment that I see and hear from a lot of my fellow Democrats. Like, I posted something about her yesterday, and the comments I got were like, he just lost in the primary. How would he win in the general? I'm like, well, he won the primary because a lot of progressives voted for her. And the way he could win in the general is that he, unlike her, I think, might have appealed to moderate Republicans and independents, which is what I think you need in Florida.
Yeah, I think you have this, and I am very sympathetic to this, and I agree with this largely, right? You have Republicans for the last, really since the Tea Party, I would say the last 20 years, since 2009, since Obama's election, so almost the last 20 years, going from here, where they were on the right, to here, right? And Democrats, as opposed to going here to have the parties meet halfway, have been trying to meet them halfway to here. And so for people who can't see us and are just listening to us, what my point is, my point of what I'm trying to say is that they've gone so far extreme to the right that Democrats have moved to the right in order to meet them in the middle.
Right.
And that is a hugely frustrating phenomenon. And I get exactly why there are Democrats, including me, who are like, wait a second, we have just completely given up our values here in order to meet Republicans halfway, but their halfway has become so extreme that we're no longer resembling anything like the Democratic Party used to resemble, under FDR and back in the days when we were able to accomplish really big things. So I get that. I'm very sympathetic to that mindset, and I'm very sympathetic to people's views on that. What I am very concerned about is, let's say that this is such a wave year and it's shaping up to potentially be a wave year, that Democrats actually win, that these Democratic socialists actually win. There is a lot of what they say that I agree with, but there's a lot about what they say that I don't agree with. And I don't want to see our party being taken in the direction. They keep saying Medicare for all, Medicare for all. I mean, if you read the DSA's platform, it's about a lot more than Medicare for all, right?
Sure
it is really,
get rid of
really
prisons, defund the police, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And it's exclusive of a lot of members of the Democratic base, which is why I think if you look at Michigan, and I get into a lot of trouble for saying this because apparently somehow I'm taking agency away from Black women when I say this, but it's quite the opposite. The base of the Democratic Party has been and will continue to be for the foreseeable future, not these, Brooklyn, brownstone Brooklyn
Right.
kids, Nepo babies who have the time and the money, like Hassan Piker and others, to sit around on the internet all day. But it's Black women who are literally carrying this party. And I have focus grouped enough people in my life to know that most people don't have time to sit around and think about this nonsense. And what they have time to sit around and do is work a job to make sure that they can put food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And that when I have focus grouped during the Defund the Police movement, a cohort of Black voters, Democratic voters, they were appalled at the Defund the Police movement.
Yeah.
And this is at the height of the Defund the Police movement that apparently was being done in their name, because apparently the police were so racist that this was being done to help Black people, right? If you listen to some of these brownstone Brooklyn white kids.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that Black voters were like, don't defund the police. Like, we need the police. What are you talking about? Like, we need the police in our neighborhoods. They don't want to hear this nonsense. They don't want to hear about how, you're so concerned about people dying in Gaza 6,000 miles away, but you're not concerned necessarily about meeting their needs here, right? You think about where the energy is going in this party among this cohort, and it's all about how, oh my God, Gaza, Gaza, Gaza. Gaza's become the price of admission. If
Right.
you can't go ahead and be maximalist
That's right.
from the river to the sea, if you can't be maximalist on saying Israel doesn't have the right to exist, like, it's not even about like we need a two-state solution. No. There's only one solution, Intifada revolution, right? If you can't say that, you are not in the club. Nothing else you say gets you into the club.
Well, it's really interesting you're saying that, because if I said to you 4 years ago that a Jewish congressman who represents Manhattan, who is staunchly pro-Israel, will lose his seat for being pro-Israel, you would have said, you're crazy, right?
And it was all on the back of this. And again, Dan Goldman's a great example of somebody who was a hero of the impeachment trial and lead counsel. He lost, right? So it's no surprise.
He wouldn't say genocide. I think that's really
you wouldn't say genocide. And it's like, that's the price of admission now. And so I want to caution my friends who I agree with. I want Medicare for all, right? I want what Zora Madani keeps talking about, universal pre-care. And that would have helped me tremendously. I mean, I think about the money that I spent on daycare for my son when he was little. Like, you can't afford to do it if you don't make a certain amount of money in New York. Like, I agree with all of these things. But where I can't bring myself to support the notion that unless you go to a maximalist approach on an issue that is 6,000 miles from people and does not impact most voters in this country, you automatically can't be in the club. And if that's what they're going to base their campaigns on, and they may win, because as I said, Trump's numbers, I mean, he's at 32%. Like, he's literally tying Harry Truman as the lowest approval rating of any president going into a midterm. And Harry Truman lost the House and the Senate that year tremendously. So, or Democrats did. So, like, what are you thinking? Like, what are you telling voters about their needs? Not about what kids, and they would say to me, I'm sure, and they would say to you, well, if you can't say that this is a genocide, then nothing else you say matters, because this is such an obviously horrible genocide that, well, okay, to which I say, what about Ukraine? Right? What about Darfur? What about these other places?
Yeah. Nigeria, the Uyghurs in China. Syrians. The list goes on and on and on. Yet,
and then they're like, well, we fund Israel, okay, but you're also wanting to fund not just Israel. Some of these candidates wanted to fund Ukraine. So there's a genocide going on there. So you don't want to help the Ukrainians?
You mentioned something about the Black community, and I want to explore that a little bit, because I think there's something really interesting there, because the black community does not vote as a monolith. They,
Right.
I don't want to lump all black people together, but
Yep.
you are correct in that the black electorate and black women have been a big part of the engine that's been driving the party and driving elections. And something interesting happened this week that was quite telling, and that was the election of Debbie Wasserman Schultz down in Florida. And she ran against several black candidates, and she won.
Who split? Well, they split the vote, right?
Yeah, but your point is a good one, because I don't think the black electorate in this country has time for purity tests, has time for protest votes, has time for any of this stuff. They chose the person who they thought was going to best represent them, not the person who has the same color or any other determining criteria. They put a value on experience. They put a value on seniority. When you're getting on committees, seniority matters. These are the things that I think are just summarily being dismissed today by the left, like the establishment. Just anyone who's been in Congress for a while, bad. Anybody who's new and radical, good. And I think that lack of nuancing is just dangerous for the party. And as we head towards the most critical election in our history, democracy is literally hanging on a thread here. Just imagine Donald Trump unfettered for the next 2.5 years.
I could not agree with you more. And I will say that the two most pragmatic, and again, there's ideology, which I think is, we all believe in certain things, but if you're so didactic that you can't see nuance, then that's a problem.
Yeah. Somebody said to me yesterday, I'd rather not vote than vote for Alexander Vindman. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that makes
Okay. Well, we
makes a
saw,
lot of sense.
listen, Dearborn, Michigan voted for Donald Trump because they wanted to send a message to Kamala Harris about Gaza.
Yeah.
How'd that work out for you, friends?
After about a week,
seriously,
not
how did that?
They had virus
I mean,
remorse after a week.
But I mean, how'd that work out for you? Okay, you punished the Democrats. You got us.
Right.
Congratulations.
Right.
Punish the Democrats. And now the same people in Dearborn, Michigan are like, vote blue no matter who. Maybe you're not happy, but you got to vote for Abdul Saeed. Well, okay. But where were you with that mindset 2 years ago?
Right.
And I have to say that the most and again, I have observed so many focus groups over the years, and I know everybody's like, oh, consultants suck, and the consultant part. Like, yes, I agree. Democratic consultants have gotten us to this point. I agree. I don't disagree with that at all. However, there is a benefit to actually listening to what voters say, not just your little circle. And again, remember, we all live increasingly in our own little echo chamber. We don't live among people who are not like-minded anymore politically. There is study after study showing this, right? So if all of your friends at your, raves are talking about how, oh no, we got to defund the police and we've got to, get rid of prisons and unfettered immigration, no matter who. Listen, I am an immigrant. So I'm the first to say that I got here purely by luck. Really, I got here because I was part of the Lucky Sperm Club. I was a Soviet Jew and they were allowing us in. Because of a policy that was passed in the 1970s. And so I'm very lucky. I am actually much more left on immigration than I think most people are. But I know that it doesn't sell well. You have to sell things first. You have to actually make people come along with you. You can't just impose it on them.
Yeah.
And the most pragmatic people on earth are Black voters and Latino voters. Black voters, because they, as you point out, don't care about, you sitting around drinking, your craft beer and having these conversations. Like they got stuff to do and they need to get to it. And that's why they voted in South Carolina for Joe Biden, because they understood that at that time and place, he was the one that was going to most likely be able to beat Trump. And they were right. So that was one. And two, didn't matter that he wasn't Black, didn't matter that he wasn't from the South. Like they obviously pragmatically did a cost benefit assessment and said, this is the guy that we think is most likely to get us to where we want to go. And he had built decades of trust with that community as a senator and as a vice president. So that's one. Two, which is why I think everybody's like, oh, Kamala Harris is is a favorite in South Carolina. Why? Because no. Neither she nor Cory Booker are the prohibitive favorites in South Carolina. Black voters don't care.
Right.
They when it comes to this kind of stuff. I don't want to speak for them. And I know I always get in trouble when I say this because they're like, how dare you? Why are you speaking for Black voters? I'm not. I'm just telling you what I've seen.
No, you have an opinion.
Over and over again.
Opinion.
Not an opinion. I've just it's
based
on
there's stats that support
based on evidence. Based on evidence. I'm not. If you want to, I'm a Jewish voter. You want to speak for Jewish voters based on evidence? Please do. Like, I'm not going to get offended. So that's one. Two. Latino voters are really pragmatic. Latino voters, and they're definitely not a monolith because it is stupid to call somebody from Colombia.
Right.
To have similar feelings as somebody from Cuba is as stupid as saying that somebody from Ireland has, similar viewpoints as somebody from, Romania.
Mm-hmm.
But traditionally, Latino voters, and I really hate to use them as a monolith, but I'm going to just for the sake of brevity do that. They're very much like I call it the Janet Jackson model, right? Like they're like, what have you done for me lately?
Mm-hmm.
They don't care about your nonsense. They want to know what you're going to do for them. And rightly so. This is how voters typically vote. They don't care what you're going to do for somebody in Gaza. I know you care about it. I know you're very passionate about it. I understand that this is the moral cause of your life. I get it, and I agree.
How do you explain their support for Trump, though?
Because Biden wasn't delivering for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's exactly what I said. Their attitude is, I don't want to hear your nonsense. I don't want to hear your promises. Right. What have you done for me lately?
So and a year later, they're back with Democrats.
And as much as Texas Republicans, like morons, gerrymandered districts to make them what they thought was more Republican based on Latinos voting for Trump last time around, they're going to get embarrassed because the people who thought were Republicans are not Republicans. They are the most, they are nobody's base.
Mm-hmm.
They are nobody's base. And as much as Democrats for years thought that Black brown voters were their base, no, Latinos are not anybody's base. Latinos are going to go to the person that is going to give them the best offer now. And by the way, that is an incredibly smart way to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you that those voters do not care if you want an intifada revolution.
Right.
They don't care. They may sympathize with what's going on in Gaza. They may say this is awful, but on the list of the top 10 things in the world that they care about, I promise you something happening 6,000 miles away is not there.
I agree with you, but one Jew is going to ask the other Jew this question. Why is that issue as if it's the number one issue to so many people?
Because I think it is the moral cause, because I think it is truly the moral cause of some people's lives. Like they see slaughter happening in Gaza. They see the United States funding the Netanyahu government. They see a government that has been deeply racist and deeply oppressive for decades. And they feel strongly that we should no longer be doing that, and we're complicit in what they consider to be a genocide. And to be honest, I understand where that's coming from, and AIPAC has not helped itself by forcing out good Democrats who otherwise are very pro-Israel, but having a purity test that if you don't go along with every single thing that Benjamin Netanyahu wants, you're obviously anti-Israel. There's a former congressman named Tom Malinowski, who had 100% pro-Israel voting record. AIPAC AIPAC came for him to the tune of $3 million and inadvertently elected somebody from the DSA who's very anti-Israel. So, what a cell phone. But the point is, I think AIPAC should disband because I think AIPAC has gone past the sell-by date for reasons like that. Look, I don't even think that people realize that they're being anti-Semitic when they say this, but you have to wonder if you want, free Palestine from the river to the sea, what are you going to do with the 12 million Jews who live there?
Right.
Because they're there. I mean, half the world's Jewish population is in Israel. So where are they going to go?
There's also millions of Palestinians who
presumably
Israeli citizens who do have equal rights there. Unlike in every
presumably
other Arab country.
Right. presumably they'd be allowed to stay, I guess. But it's also, listen, let me say this about Israel. I've been there a lot. Benjamin Netanyahu could not lose fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
He's an
He's a monster.
awful human being.
Mm-hmm.
He's a monster.
Mm-hmm.
His government are even bigger monsters. They are doing unconscionable things in the West Bank and increasingly unconscionable things in Gaza. I don't disagree with any of that. But I will also say to you, this is a pluralistic country where you said Arabs have equal rights. Not the ones in the West Bank, I agree, but the ones who are actually living in Israel proper have equal rights. They learn side by side with Jews in many schools.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the beach in Tel Aviv and you see women in full-on burqas next to women in bikinis, next to two men kissing, right? It is a place that has had gay marriage equality longer than we ever have. Mm-hmm. It's a place that allowed, women in the military longer than we ever have. It's a place that allowed, gay people equal rights in many ways longer than the United States has. I mean, it is Silicon Valley, and a lot of the technology that we use every day, from Waze to, a lot of our IT stuff, that's all Israel. And so I'm not here to, be the PR agent for Israel. They have tremendous problems there. Their politics are terrible. It is a country that is so deeply scarred by October 7th that they are never going to go back in the foreseeable future and say, yeah, we need a two-state solution. Like they're in no mood to, feel sympathy for people that they think, that destroyed, so much of their national identity for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not here to debate Israel. I'm simply here to say that it is a nuanced discussion, and it has completely lost nuance. And more relevantly, I think where you have problems consistently is this insane notion that voters in the United States care about these issues to the exclusion of everything else. And when your entire mindset is, oh yeah, I want Medicare for all, but before we even get to the point where, Julie, you also want Medicare for all, but before I let you into the club, don't you think that we need an intifada revolution? Don't you think that we need to free Palestine from the river to the sea? Well, free them of who? Oh, the people who live there now, the colonial oppressor. Well, who would those be? Oh, the Jews. Right? Like, we can't even get to the parts where we agree because you don't even want to hear me out until we talk about an issue that is 6,000 miles away. That's not how most voters think. That's not how most voters approach politics. That's not how most voters vote.
Well, this is why I'm concerned about November, because James Carville famously said it's the economy, stupid. We have a gift that Donald Trump and Republicans have given us, and that is they don't give a flying fuck about affordability. We have a president who mocks it. Affordability. He thinks it's a joke, calls it a hoax. All we need to do as Democrats for the next 2.5 months is say, we are going to bring down gas prices. We're going to bring down grocery prices. We're going to get you better, cheaper health care. We're going to address the housing affordability crisis. We're going to bolster public education. It seems so simple. But I'm like, are we going down this rabbit hole again where we're talking about things that, to your point, most people don't care about? Maybe the coastal elites care about it, but most people in this country don't. And are we going to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory when we have the greatest opportunity, I think, in political history to cause that blue tidal wave?
I think Trump's numbers are so bad that people are going to turn out to vote just because they want to stick it to Trump.
But you know
right?
how many people I've been hearing, like on CNN and MSNBC, even Kara Swisher says she's spoken to people she knows, Democrats in Michigan, like people who are like, I don't subscribe to anything the Republicans do, but I can't vote for Abdul.
Well, I'll tell you something.
And it's like, are we giving them a gift?
Yes, we are. And I think the problem is that when you campaign with somebody like Hassan Piker, and I know that most voters don't know who Hassan Piker is, but I promise you they will soon know who he is because he's going to be in every Republican ad between now and November. Mm-hmm. And when you campaign with somebody like that, you own a lot of what he said. I'll give you an example. There is a Democratic candidate running in central New Jersey who named Adam Holloway, who was a doctor in Gaza. He's an American Army surgeon. He's a doctor. He saved Tammy Duckworth's life in Iraq. He then went to Gaza and worked with the kids in Gaza there and has done very, very good stuff for the United States. However, he also was in the inner circle of the blind sheikh, the guy that blew up the World Trade Center.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, in that primary, AIPAC did not play, which is despite the fact they had one of their own members running, which is just insane. Like, perfect place for AIPAC to play, which underscores my belief that I think AIPAC actually wants some of these people to be the faces of the Democratic Party so they could run against them holistically. But this man never had to account for the fact that he was in the inner circle of the blind sheikh, the guy who blew up the World Trade Center in 1993, the guy who inspired Osama bin Laden. And nobody ever asked him about it because if you did, you would be perceived as being Islamophobic in that primary, which is insane because the guy literally, I think it's actually Islamophobic to assume that just because he's Muslim, he had to pal around with the blind sheikh. Like it's crazy. Like it's the opposite actually. Like you don't need to, you can be a wonderful Muslim without having to pal around with a guy like that. And I grew up in that district, so I know it well. And my closest friend growing up happened to be Muslim, and there was a wonderful Islamic center in that district where she used to go with her family. I used to go there with her just because whenever I'd have to tag along with them on stuff that they do. And I can tell you, you did not need to go hang out with the blind sheikh to be a good Muslim. You could have just gone to this place. He chose not to do that. He chose to pal around with the blind sheikh and was in his inner circle. It was a defense witness for the blind sheikh. So now we have somebody going to Congress who was a defense witness for one of the biggest terrorists in the history of this country. And he hung out with Hassan Piker. He campaigned with Hassan Piker. And when he was asked about, hey, like, what's up with you campaigning with Hassan Piker? And are you going to really do that? His answer was, well, he speaks, 8 hours a day. If I had to speak 8 hours a day, I'd say some really dumb shit too. Well, I'm sorry. Nobody's forcing him to speak 8 hours a day so that he says dumb stuff. Like, that's now the excuse for hanging out with Hassan Piker. Would we say that about Nick Fuentes? Mm-hmm. Would we say that about Tucker Carlson? Do we not see what we're establishing here, which is their equivalent? And I know that Democrats in some quarters think that Republicans have been really, really effective in using these kinds of people in order to gain power. And I agree. But are you really going to excuse some of the stuff that Hassan Piker says by saying, well, he speaks 8 hours a day, he's bound to say some really stupid stuff? Like,
yeah, well, El Sayed won't disavow him, and I've seen him ask the question. He was asked, "Will you campaign with him?" And he didn't say no. He still leaves that open, and he has, and he probably will.
And he has. It doesn't matter if he will or he hasn't or he won't. He already has. That video exists.
And here's the problem: Mike Rogers is not a MAGA Republican. He could appeal to independents and moderate Republicans. And I think that was Kara Swisher's point, is that there are people who would like to vote for somebody other than Mike Rogers that she knows in Michigan. And I've seen other interviews, like I said, but they may not be able to vote for him. Look, I want to make this clear to everybody who listens to me and who reads my shit online. I will do anything humanly possible that I can do for the next 2.5 months to help elect Abdul El Sayed, Angie Nixon, any other candidate. That's my job as a Democrat, to make sure Democrats win in any way that I can, whatever power I have, whatever voice I have, whatever platform I have. The goal in Michigan is to beat Mike Rogers.
Well, here's my fear. My fear is that it's such a Democratic year that you're going to have a whole bunch of people swept up in this wave who otherwise would not be competitive in a general election. And the lesson that Democrats are going to take from that victory is, oh, you see, this
I hope you're
part,
right.
This left, well, I'm not so sure, because this leftist strain is not toxic. See, all these people won. People who campaigned with Hassan Piker, they won. And what that's going to lead to is putting a gun to the heads of Democratic presidential candidates in 2028 to espouse some of this vision, because you see, we were able to win. Well, you were able to win because Donald Trump, this was a referendum on Donald Trump. I'm not so sure in 2028, when Trump's not on the ballot, I hope, that this is going to be a similar scenario. People are actually going to want a proactive message from you. And I fear that the lesson that Democrats are going to take from all of these far leftists getting elected is that it's not bad for the brand. And what I'm here to tell you is what is happening now is exactly the same bargain that Republicans made with Trump. Yes, he sucks. Yes, we're uncomfortable with him, but at least he's not Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, look,
That's a problem.
I hope you're right about November. I mean, 28 just seems so far off, and
It's not that far off.
we'll deal with it as we have to deal with it. But I was heartbroken over Hillary. I was heartbroken over the Biden-Harris thing. I've been heartbroken too many times where I have put my faith in my fellow Americans, or a majority of my fellow Americans, who I at one point thought would do the right thing, and they didn't. And so it's hard for me to like sit here and go, okay, November, yeah, blue wave, it's going to be, because I hear too many of these people going, yeah, you know what, I'm such a big supporter of Israel, and that's why I'm going to vote for Mike Rogers, because I can't vote for, and I just have this nightmare scenario where we get lucky and we pick up North Carolina and we flip Texas, Iowa, or Maine, or Alaska, but then we lose the Senate because we lost Michigan, right? I'm not convinced that people are going to do the right thing on either side, okay? It used to be that I just looked at the right and said, okay, Republicans, I don't know why you're voting the way you do, but man, you are making a bad choice. Now I'm looking at the left and going, we may be guilty of that same thing, and I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, look, I am, what is heartbreaking to me is that I agree, I don't agree with DSA's views on prisons, and I don't agree with DSA's views on a lot of, certainly on their Israel stuff and their foreign policy more broadly. But where I do agree with a lot of these, with a lot of the leftists is yes, I think billionaires should be held accountable. Yes, I do think that we need to have a stronger healthcare safety net. I mean, all of these progressive issues, there's a lot of agreement on.
Sure. It's what America is saying they want.
Right. But as a well, not necessarily. Hakeem Jeffries doesn't want Medicare for all, and he doesn't because
no,
honestly,
I'm saying the voters.
Yeah, the voters. Yeah, he thinks polling shows that people don't want Medicare for all because Republicans are going to say, "Oh, you like your employer-based healthcare? They're going to take it away from you, and make you get on Medicare." Like that's why he's opposed to it. Everybody's like, "Oh, he takes pharma money, maybe," but it's really because he's seen that kind of polling. From my perspective, if you actually explain it correctly, which is if you like your healthcare, you can keep it. But if not, you can get Medicare.
Right. Isn't Bernie Sanders say Medicare for all if you want it?
If you want it,
if
right.
You want it.
Right. But I think what we're talking about is a price of admission that a lot of people are reluctant to pay. So I'll give you an example. I just talked about this guy, Adam Holloway in New Jersey 12. My parents live in that district. Mm-hmm. They have voted Democrat their entire life. They now have to make a decision between voting for a guy who campaigned with Hassan Piker and said horrible things about Jews, who was and not just Jews, but Black people and women, and calling women the C word, and saying he doesn't care about what Black voters think, and so on and so forth. They have to support that, who also was in the inner circle of a terrorist who literally died in the United States prison system because he tried to do what Osama bin Laden 8 years later succeeded in doing, which is bring down the World Trade Center. I mean, this is like being in Osama bin Laden's inner circle. I don't understand how this is even acceptable. They have to choose between voting for that guy because he's got a D next to his name, or voting for the Republican who's going to make Mike Johnson speaker again, or not voting at all. That is a terrible place to put people like my parents.
Sure.
It is a terrible place to put them.
Because a good chunk of them are going to vote for the Republican.
Or not vote at all.
Or not vote at all, which is not a good thing either.
Which is not a good thing either. Or write in, Andy Ostroy's name. Or something that's not...
Well, that would be a smart choice.
That would be amazing. But something that would not advance the cause of Democratic voters.
Yeah.
And so... And getting Democrats into the majority. And I suspect that applies in places like, and look, he's going to win. It's a Democratic district, but he's not going to win by the same numbers that I think is, well, maybe because it's a tidal wave election. But I mean, you have people like Daria Lizia Chevalier in northern Manhattan / the Bronx, I mean, this is a woman who wanted, Joseph Stalin's works in New York City Public Library. This is a woman who said Chairman Mao, as did Hassan Piker, was a wonderful guy, and that we should have him, emulate him more than Marx and Lenin because he actually accomplished revolution. I mean, like crazy stuff that you take a bong hit in your college dorm room and talk to your pretentious friends about. Like, I don't know who else speaks this way, right? Like, this is the kind of stuff that, like, this is the Democratic equivalent of these Republicans who read The Fountainhead when they're 15 and they're like, oh my God, my eyes have been opened by Ayn Rand. And it's like, you're an idiot and you're going to outgrow this eventually. Mm-hmm. Well, the people who never outgrew this eventually are now going to Congress. And they have a D next to their name. So what are people in that, like, I have friends in that district. It's just a few blocks north of me. And so what are these friends going to do? Are they going to vote for somebody like this because she's a Democrat? Are they going to stay home? Are they going to vote for the Republican to send a message? She's still going to win. It's a deeply Democratic district. But I mean, this is what we're empowering right now. And in the name of Medicare for All, in the name of being upset with Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, who, by the way, I think suck. Like, I think the Democratic Party sucks. In 2024,
capital S.
Yes, in 2024, well before these people all piped up, I went on CNN and I said something that went completely viral, which is that the Democratic Party leadership sucks. They need to learn how to communicate. They need to go. They need to stop with this nonsense. Instead, what these people, the lesson that some of these Democrats took from that is, yes, Democratic Party sucks, but let's lean into all the stupid stuff that gets voters pissed off. Let's cancel people who don't put they, them underneath their email signature. Well, nobody's more, I'm sorry, I'm deeply pro-LGBTQ community. But if you don't put they, them underneath your signature because you don't want to, because you have better things to do than virtue signal, you shouldn't be canceled for that.
Right.
And if you mistakenly call somebody by the wrong pronoun, you shouldn't be canceled for that. You should be corrected. And then if you continue to do that, then you're an asshole.
Yeah. Well, we're back to the purity tests again. Yeah.
But it's the purity testing, right? If you don't think that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, you shouldn't be prohibited from joining the club. If you don't, forget the genocide in Gaza, that's not even the test anymore. If you think that Israel has the right to exist, that Jews have the right to live on the land that is now currently called Israel, you can't be in the club anymore. Sorry. Nothing else you say. You could agree with them on 99% of their views, but nothing else you say will get you. It's like literally, it's like it's when you go into the speakeasy and they open the door. If you don't say yes to that, then you can't get through the door to talk about anything else.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with people, and then I'll stop and I'll be like, do you think Israel has a right to exist? And they'll say no. And I'll be like, oh, that explains every conversation we've had, Now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I get it. Now I get where you're
coming
from.
You got rid of Dan Goldman based on nothing other than that. That's it.
A great congressman who did a lot of good.
I mean, that's
in
it.
my opinion.
I mean, truly. Yeah. I mean, what did Dan Goldman do other than that? That's all they did to Dan Goldman. And
that's where
okay.
we're at.
I mean, that's where we're at, right? But that's exactly Dan Goldman's district. It's these white affluent liberals who live in Brownstone, Brooklyn and downtown Manhattan who decided to get rid of Dan Goldman. And by the way, I hate to break it to Brad Lander, his successor, but unless he goes completely left and leans crazy in the next 2 years, they'll get rid of him too. Like, and he will have no choice but to do that. And don't you see that's the direction the Republican Party went in 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago? Don't you see that it started with the Tea Party that wanted, to be taxed less, to have a more sane fiscal policy. And then they leaned more and more and more into the insanity of the culture wars. And this is why they're going to lose this year, because they took their eye off the prize on the things that matter to people, which is the economy. Like, why are we taking...
If we talk about Michigan again, I was watching one of the networks yesterday, I forget what, but they had somebody on, and that person referred to El Sayed as a DSA candidate. And the anchor or reporter that was talking didn't correct. I mean, the guy is not a DSA candidate. He's a capitalist. He says all the time, I'm a capitalist. He's a physician. He's got money. That doesn't mean he doesn't care about the affordability issues. Honestly, I've said this before, if it wasn't for his views on Israel, I think he's a pretty good candidate. I think he's extremely charismatic. He's funny. He's fun. His videos are good. They're going viral. I just wish people like him who are running would just say, okay, you know what? Let me just listen to Carville. Let me just talk about this economy, which everybody hates, which is why Trump's approval is in the low 30s and probably headed to the 20s. Let me just say affordability, 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 affordability. And then when I get in Congress, then I could vote on whatever I want or introduce whatever bills I want, but I'll be elected. I just hope that's the strategy. If I was in his earpiece, that's what I would be telling him, because I don't think he's a bad candidate. I think actually what he says and what a lot of these candidates are saying is resonating because most of America has an issue with the economy. And if we just stick to the economy, it's the economy, stupid. How many times do we have to see that before we start believing it and acting on it?
I mean, look, you have somebody like Hassan Piker, who he campaigns with, who wants, who attacks has in the past attacked party unity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he blasted moderate Democrats for pushing fence mending, right, or party unity after heated primaries. He demanded punishment for people he calls centrist, right? Like he says that they should face political consequences and be punished rather than accommodated for people who openly oppose Abdullah Saeed in the primary. And it's really insane. It's really insane because these are the people whose votes you're going to need. And why are you campaigning with a guy like that? But we have empowered that mindset so much that they can't. It's the same way Republicans, like this is the part that just drives me crazy. You speak to Republicans privately, they know Trump is nuts, but they can't disavow him because they need him.
No, but they're also begging
But this is what's happening on the
They're begging
left.
him to stay on message. And it's the same strategy, the same advice should be given to our candidates. Just stay on point. The economy is number one in the minds of every American. Stay on that. I think if they did that, these people might win. They might seriously win in places we don't expect them to win because of the wave election that is probably going to happen. If that's the case, take away any reason for a moderate Republican or an independent or someone pro-Israel to not vote for you. Because the worst thing that can happen in this election is that we see what happened a lot in the last election, which is single issue voters, the purity test people. That's what's going to kill us. I don't want to see that happen again. Let's not give them that gift.
As I said, I think that this is a year where you're going to have a wave and you're going to have people getting in the same way that in 2010 you had a bunch of Tea Party people getting in who otherwise would not have been elected, but they got in because people just hated Barack Obama so much. I think this is that kind of year in 2026. What year are we in? 2026. But I think what this says and how this bodes for the future of the Democratic Party is terrifying. I perfectly understand why people are saying, hey, the Republicans have gone so far to the right and we have to go so far to the left to meet in the middle.
Right.
And I hope that that's true, but except I don't think a lot of these people want to meet in the middle. I think these people will not compromise on anything because compromise is a dirty word. And they will not vote for a budget, and they will not vote for Medicare for all, and they will not vote for Hakeem Jeffries to be speaker, which, by the way, I hope he's not speaker, but they will not vote for any speaker unless that person promises to defund every penny from Israel.
Yeah.
And the reality is it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, which means that they're going to shut down Congress? What are we talking about here? People have real needs in this country that they want met. And yet, as I keep saying, there's a price of admission to get into the party now from their perspective. That's a problem. That's a problem. Listen, I am deeply passionate about what's happening in Ukraine, deeply passionate about it. As passionate as I think they are about what's happening in Gaza is as passionate as I am about what's happening in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is what Democrats should be campaigning on. Because because most people don't care.
Yeah, it's too complicated.
I'm sorry to say.
The bus driver.
Well, it's not even that it's complicated. People get it, but the reality is the bus driver driving the bus needs to figure out how to put food on his table.
Exactly.
And their whole thing is, babies, not bombs. We need to, keep the money here as opposed to sending it to Israel. It's a smart message, except for the fact that you don't understand, or maybe they do understand, but they don't want to deal with it, that if you don't agree philosophically with them, they don't want to talk about babies.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about anything. It's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem. And if you're talking about babies, not bombs, you're also talking about babies, not bombs for Ukraine. Like, is that what you're saying? I mean, a lot of them are saying that, in which case you're abetting a genocide in Ukraine, because the only thing that's stopping that genocide right now is our ability to give funding to people in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Not stopping, the genocide is happening. It's just, it's complicated, which is why I think we need to stop being so didactic and start thinking about logically how we not just win this year, but have a majority that takes us through 28 and a president that takes us through 28, and how we get people who are not necessarily in violent agreement with us and everything to vote for us anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a lot to ask from liberals. In our last couple of minutes, I want to go on a lighter note here. Natale, Harp, as the Saturday Night Live skit used to say, "What up with that? What's happening there? Who is this woman? Is this his mistress? Like, what are we watching? And where the hell
You know
is
what?
Melania?
I did a whole Substack column on this, and I will tell you this: we have no idea what they're doing with each other and whatever. But what we do know about her already is completely psychotic. This is a woman who has, and this is all stuff that's already been reported. So this is not me, conjecturing about this stuff. This is a woman who was an evangelical Christian, went to Liberty University, had bone cancer, believes that Trump resurrected her from the dead, because until he signed the right to try law into effect, she does not think that she would have survived bone cancer. Now, the experimental treatment that she used did not depend on the right to try law, and she had used it before he signed that law into impact. But like a good, I guess, true believer, facts don't get in the way of faith. So she believes truly that he resurrected her from the dead. She used to have a TV show that she used to end with lines from scripture, but sometimes she'd replace the scripture with what Trump said. So she literally replaced Jesus or St. Paul
Same thing.
with Trump.
Same thing.
With Trump, right? This is the woman who posted the picture of Trump looking Jesus-like, resurrecting other people from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
And
did she really hop in the trunk?
Okay, I have no idea.
That's a corroborated story, apparently.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the thing that I think the thing that's scary to think about this is, think about what Trump is demanding of his most loyal disciple now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily sex. Maybe it is, but it's, what we do know is it's not necessarily sex. Yeah, it's not necessarily loyalty, because all these people are loyal to him.
Mm-hmm.
It is treating him like a
God.
deity.
Yeah.
It is called autotheism. It is when somebody starts to believe that they are divine. And if this were grandpa and not the president, if he started believing that he was divine and having somebody around him as close as say, treat him like Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
you would commit grandpa to an insane asylum. Instead, grandpa has the nuclear codes, which is why I'm saying to you that what is going on between the two of them, it's scarier and more terrifying. And I wrote about this in my Substack, which I invite people at Salty Politics to go read about. It is more terrifying than if they were just having sex. Lots of presidents have had affairs. Trump has had affairs. Like, who cares? I mean, honestly, you want to go, well, I care in the sense that she works for him. So that's a huge power imbalance. It's inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do think is scary is not that he might be having sex with her. What I think is scary is actually what she feeds in him, which is his worldview, which is that he is autotheistic. He believes that he is divine.
Mm. We are truly...
Think about that.
Oh, I've thought about it. We are truly living in the fucking Twilight Zone.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, think about where you would 10 years ago, if somebody were to say this to you,
Mm-hmm.
what your attitude is. But we're like frogs. We've been in that boiling pot for so long, we don't even think that this is weird anymore.
Well, look, people have, I say this all the time. November 3rd, Election Day, the janitor and the billionaire have the same exact power. If you don't like the stuff we've been talking about, if you don't like the Iran war, if you don't like the economy, if you don't like the Epstein cover-up, if you don't like the corruption and the grift, you can do something about it on November 3rd. You can vote out of office the people who protect and enable and defend Donald Trump. They don't deserve to have their jobs.
I agree. I agree.
All righty.
It was so good to see you.
Likewise. Take care. This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Langell. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.